October 11th, 2000. The grass was dewy. The sky was blue. Yira Peoples sat in the core of the vortex, wrapped in ascension fabric. She had been waiting here all night. She did not know it, but the hump had been cinched. The Battle of Chirpley Hill had been won. When Nettie made his way back to the property, covered in goo, he looked out longingly to the curtain encircling his wife in the distance at the core. But he could not distract her while she waited to ascend. So he kept walking on toward the other spiritualists convening in the residence. Tergo Tappet approached Nettie. She handed him a spoonful of gelatin on a fork. Without question, Nettie ate it. Tergo Tappet put the palm of her hand over Nettie's face and gripped it tight. Nettie felt all the residue of the zenching come off him. He felt the soreness lift, his blood rejuvenate warmth and flow. "Thank you, Tergo," said Nettie. Tergo blew smoke in Nettie's face. The Hungarian prince brought out breakfast for everyone. They gathered around the table. Trent Hems poured coffee with potion cream. While they had won the Battle of Chirpley Hill, tension hung in the air. The true war would only end with ascension. The only recorded ascension was May 2nd, 1983. It took Rose Roud 5 hours and 21 minutes. She returned 36 minutes later. "Do you think she'll ascend?" asked Harriet Johanna. The spiritualists argued. Trent Hem spoke up. "Do not forget. The vortex summoned her. Rose Roud is never wrong. The acquired child will ascend." Trent Hems spoke with a reassurance that soothed the room. They all drank the enticer's delicious coffee. Trent Hems approached Nettie Hoyt. "How are you holding up, old friend?" asked Trent. Nettie looked out at the vortex core. The drapery folded around her, layer by layer of fabric. Then she felt the fabric unspool. The fabric unraveled and unraveled until she pressed against it and broke through. An eternity went by. She was lost in a strange daydream that never ended, staring at the blurry line on the horizon. Throughout this eternity, a figure on the horizon slowly came into focus. Yira Peoples was no longer Yira Peoples. She was a piece of goo poking from the wet sand. No, she was an eyeball. Vibrations emitted. The figure began to sway. In a sea of eyeballs, infinite, the entity grew in size, in brightness, in power. Even though she was only an eyeball in this realm, she felt a sinking in her stomach. She felt a tickle in her groin. She felt a pulsating draw toward this strange entity in the distance. A sense of love she had never felt before. In this moment, she knew what she had to do. She had to get the entity's attention. But there were so many eyeballs. She squinted at the entity, for that was all she could do in her new eyeball form. To Yira Peoples, in her eyeball form, it seemed as though decades passed, with her drifting off staring at the entity's dance, until she came to a realization. Yira Peoples was no longer Yira Peoples. She was all the eyeballs. She squinted, not just with one eyeball, but with all of the eyeballs. The entity turned, and it saw her. While she was many eyeballs, she had no mouth, no arms, so she could not shout, "I love you" to the entity. She could not give it a hug. The entity stared at her vast sea of twitching eyeballs, scattered and deformed across the wet sand. Yira peoples had to strain in this moment, to keep control of all the eyeballs, to keep from lulling into a demented slumber. It was almost as if the entity wanted her to drift away. But something inside of her cooed throughout the realms. Kill it. No, she couldn't. She loved it. Yira peoples had not known what ascension would feel like, what it would be. But now she was here. She had no idea it would be like this. So wonderful. So ticklish on so many eyeballs. The entity's vibrations soothing her in places that did not exist in the other earthly realm. She wanted to scream with laughter, but all she could form were a flood of tears. The entity grew larger, its vibrations tingling intensely. I am all the eyeballs. I am the goo. I am the sand. I am the sky. I am the entity. She ascended once more above. She saw the spiraling core of the vortex. As the entity, she had new abilities of communication, transcendent forms of communication that defy speech, that defy orgasm. As she stared into the core of the vortex, she felt the dizzying sense of weight, the vibrations of another realm. She could have sworn she saw her dead mother, or maybe that was a blimp in the sky, its spotlight enveloping Yira. A message came through that spotlight. It felt like a sweet song reverberating inside of her. She looked down. She saw the vortex below her, swirling, spewing. She felt its energy, its radiance, its power. She did not know in this moment, but these were the negotiations. She did not know in this moment, but she was, in this eternal daydream into the swirling core, seeing the vortex for what it truly was. Seeing death for what it truly was. Back on the property, the fabric unspooled around her. She saw lights on in the residence. She took the back door and snuck upstairs to the room at the end of the hall. The television of Rose Roud blared loudly. Yira people sat next to her, held her hand. They looked into each other's eyeballs.